then also I stopped racing, and then we all together just living our life, having a good time with a beer probably somewhere.
Right now, the F1 paddock is blaming Red Bull's terrible 2026 car, but telemetry shows a dark truth Max Verstappen refuses to admit. His own driving style is making it a nightmare. 7 laps. That's how long Max Verstappen's soft compound tires lasted in China before they were effectively dead. Not worn, not degraded, gone. Against rivals managing 15, 16, 17 laps on the same compound without that level of destruction. A slow car doesn't eat tires in 7 laps. Something else is happening inside that data. This channel is not going to tell you Max Verstappen is driving badly. He isn't. He's a 4-time world champion extracting everything his car will give. Every single session. But driving at the absolute limit of a car that doesn't suit your style is a completely different problem from driving badly. That's the distinction the mainstream F1 conversation is almost entirely missing. And that's the breakdown you only get here on F1 Orange Army. Subscribe if you want the analysis that goes past the surface, because we're going deep into the data today. The factual baseline first. After 2 rounds of 2026, Verstappen had 8 points, a sixth in Australia, and a retirement in China with an ERS failure. Leaked weighbridge data from Shanghai showed the RB22 registering at 716.5 kilograms on the FIA scales, equating to roughly 798.5 kilograms with minimum driver weight included. Approximately 30 kilograms over the 2026 target minimum. 30 kilograms. In a sport where teams spend hundreds of millions to extract hundredths of a second per lap, that's not a footnote. Excess mass loads the rear tires harder, creates an understeer into oversteer snap at corner exit, and adds stopping distance. No amount of driving genius overcomes physics. The car is genuinely broken. That part is real and documented. But here's where this video goes somewhere different. If the RB22 is simply too heavy and too aerodynamically flawed for the 2026 regulations, why is Max destroying tires faster than rookie teammate Isaac Hadjar? Same car, same weight, same aero, same power unit, a 21-year-old in his first season at Red Bull. The tire data between the two drivers is not identical. When 2 drivers in the same broken car produce meaningfully different wear numbers, the variable is not the car. The variable is the driver, what the RB22 actually is. The 2026 regulations are the most radical overhaul Formula One has introduced in the hybrid era. New power unit architecture, a 50-50 split between combustion and electrical energy. New chassis philosophy. Active aerodynamics replacing DRS. A complete reset of the ground effect downforce principles Red Bull had spent 4 years mastering. The theory was that teams finishing strongest under the previous rules stay competitive at the start of a new cycle. The theory was wrong. Red Bull is currently the 4th fastest team with a significant gap to McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes. And surprisingly, the majority of that gap doesn't come from the engine. The RB22 has serious balance issues, making it slow through all corner types, and those balance issues destroy tires faster than competitors. In China FP1, the RB22 showed high understeer through long corners, costing Verstappen significant time in the final sector. In slow technical sections, he was at near full steering lock just to get the nose to turn in, and simultaneously, the rear was unstable at high speed, forcing multiple steering corrections at the entry to turn 1 alone. A car with a nervous, unstable rear and a front that won't turn in slow corners is, in engineering terms, a car fighting itself. And it's the worst possible architecture for how Max Verstappen has driven every vehicle he's ever sat in. There's a secondary layer to the balance problem. The RB22 is struggling to generate sufficient energy in its tires, a separate issue from raw pace. Verstappen reported lateral sliding consistently throughout the Barcelona race. That phrase is going to matter very shortly, because lateral sliding is precisely what Max Verstappen's driving style generates deliberately. In the right car, it's a superpower. In the RB22 in 2026, it is fuel on a fire. The telemetry twist, what Max's data reveals. Bahrain testing. The first time the 2026 cars ran in anger. And what the trackside telemetry immediately showed was unusual. It was audibly evident trackside, not from a data monitor, that Verstappen was taking corners in a lower gear than any rival. Higher revs through corners to feed the ERS. Simultaneously, he was more aggressive on downshifts under braking than every other driver on the circuit. That technique generated a top speed of 338 kilometers per hour on the Bahrain pit straight. Norris, who set the fastest lap that day, peaked at 327. 11 kilometers per hour of straight-line advantage, extracted purely through cornering technique. But the consequence was a rear that became, in the team's own language, more nervous. A nervous rear inside a car that already has rear instability problems is not one problem. It's two problems feeding each other. Then comes China. Watch the Q3 onboard lap. Multiple steering corrections at turn 1 entry just to keep the car pointing forward. In high-speed sections, it's even more pronounced. Both Red Bull drivers recorded significantly lower apex speeds than rivals, forced to slow more in corners to stay competitive on the straights. But here's what the data adds. Verstappen's steering correction frequency through those problem sections was consistently higher than Hajar's. Not dramatically, not night and day, but consistently across multiple sessions, across multiple circuits. The four-time champion making more micro-corrections through the same corners than his 21-year-old rookie teammate. That is not a talent gap. That is a style incompatibility. In 45 laps across the Chinese race, Verstappen averaged 1.7 seconds per lap slower than the race winner. He started on softs to recover positions, 7 laps, dead. He moved to hards, still degrading faster than expected on a compound designed specifically for longevity. That is not a car problem in isolation. That is a driver-car interaction problem. The car is contributing heavily, but something about how this specific driver inputs into this specific car is taking a bad situation and making it measurably worse. What is that something? It has a name. F1 analysts call it the V-shaped line. And Max Verstappen has been doing it since he was in karts. The V-shaped problem, why his style breaks this car. Every driver on the Formula One grid has a preferred cornering philosophy. At the simplest level, two approaches define the spectrum, the U-shape and the V-shape. They produce measurably different loads on different parts of the car, and they suit fundamentally different car architectures. Jolyon Palmer, in the F1 TV series Racing ID, broke down Verstappen's distinct style, a preference for oversteer rather than understeer, and specifically noted it can backfire when the car isn't playing ball. Hamilton, by contrast, has always preferred the understeer side of the balance. The V-shape works like this. Brake hard and late, deep into the corner. Rotate the car quickly with aggressive steering inputs. Then exit on a straighter line with early, hard throttle application because the car is already pointed correctly. The grip goes entirely into acceleration rather than direction change. In the right car, that style is devastating. It's a core reason Verstappen extracted more from the 2021, 2022, and 2023 Red Bulls than almost any other driver could have. The Newey-era cars were built around it. Strong, responsive front end, a rear that could be asked to step out and then tamed through aggressive early throttle, rotatable, precise. The 2026 RB22 is the opposite in almost every meaningful dimension. Weak, unstable rear, massive understeer in slow and medium corners that transitions into oversteer, snap at exit. Apply V-shape instincts to that sequence, aggressive downshift into the corner, aggressive steering input to force rotation. The RB22 resists, then snaps, counter steer. The rear tires scrub laterally to absorb the correction, then early throttle onto rubber that just went through a lateral scrub event. Do that for 7 laps on a soft compound. That's your China data explained. Verstappen acknowledged this at preseason testing, though framed as an external challenge rather than a personal one. He said the car has less grip, accelerates faster out of corners, and that the way you have to drive is fundamentally different. His specific words: in lower speed corners, you are waiting a longer period of time before you go full throttle. It is a bit of a change to the last few years, where you would jump back in the car in pre-season, and it was like muscle memory, waiting longer before full throttle. For Verstappen, that is not an adjustment. That is a fundamental rewiring of a reflex built over 20 years of competitive racing. And there is no evidence in the telemetry, the setup choices, or the radio communications that the rewiring is happening fast enough. The stubborn champion, politics, radio, and blame. Here's the part that has created an entirely separate problem inside and around Red Bull. The technical reality is complex car problem plus style mismatch, compounding each other. But the public narrative Max has chosen is simple. He called the 2026 regulations anti-racing and Formula E on steroids. After China, he said, "It's terrible. If someone likes this, then you really don't know what racing is about." He warned the rules are fundamentally wrong and advocated for a return to V10 or V8 engines. This critique is not entirely wrong. Norris said Melbourne was too chaotic. Ocon called the cars painful to drive. Legitimate concerns about the 50-50 hybrid split exist across the paddock. But here's the critical distinction being lost in the noise. FIA President Ben Sulayem responded directly. "It is amazing how only those who are lagging behind complain. Did you hear Mercedes or Ferrari complain? No, of course not. It is a cycle." That observation lands differently when you've already seen the telemetry. The regulations are identical for every team. The car architecture problem is Red Bull's. The driver car compatibility problem is also Red Bull's. No amount of FIA lobbying solves either. And there's a political cost to this campaign that nobody is properly calculating. After China, Mercedes and Ferrari were reported to be totally against any changes proposed by other manufacturers on short notice. And team principals concluded there was currently no perceived need to make any hasty adjustments. The teams winning under the current rules have zero incentive to change them. Every time Verstappen publicly attacks the rule set, he hands those teams political cover to hold the line. His own campaign is actively reducing the probability of the regulatory relief he's demanding. Inside Red Bull, the public frustration creates a secondary problem that goes beyond PR. Engineering teams respond to specific, constructive technical feedback. They have a harder time responding to a driver who describes the car as horrendous on the radio and then tells the press that the sport's foundations are broken. Team principal Laurent Mekies has already publicly admitted the car showed significant shortcomings. The team knows. The question is whether driver and engineering department are pulling in exactly the same direction, or whether political energy is bleeding from one conversation into the other. The final verdict. The full picture clearly stated. The RB22 is genuinely, measurably, structurally flawed for the 2026 regulations. 30 kilograms overweight. Aerodynamically confused between understeer and rear instability. These are not Max Verstappen's fault, they are engineering decisions made before a single competitive lap was driven. But the telemetry adds a layer the simple bad car narrative doesn't capture. Verstappen's V-shaped style, late rotation, aggressive steering, early hard throttle is one of the most lethal weapons in modern Formula One when applied to a car designed to receive it. Applied to the RB22, it amplifies every weakness the car already has. The rear snap gets worse. The lateral scrub gets worse. The degradation gets worse. The 7-lap soft tire death in China is partly the car. It is also partly the driver. Both things are true simultaneously. And the political response attacking the regulations loudly across press conferences, radio transmissions, and post-race interviews is generating noise that is not making the car faster. It is giving rival teams political cover to block rule changes. It is potentially diverting energy inside Red Bull that would be better directed at the debrief room. None of this means Max Verstappen is finished. 4 world championships are not won by accident. The talent to adapt is clearly there. He has done it before. After the crash years of 2016 to 2018, he adapted. After the mechanical failure years, he adapted. After 2021's final lap controversy, he adapted and came back with arguably the most complete season of his career in 2022. But every previous adaptation involved refining the same underlying style. More precision, more control. The same weapons, applied more accurately. The 2026 regulations are not asking for refinement. They are asking for something closer to replacement, at least partially, at least for now. Whether the 4-time world champion can make that switch fast enough to matter in 2026 is the most interesting engineering and psychology question in Formula One right now. The telemetry has asked the question. Max Verstappen still hasn't answered it. We'll be watching when he does. That's what F1 Orange Army is here for. Subscribe if you're not already on board, because this story has a long way left to run.